Beware of Greeks bearing gifts. Today, it would be better phrased of beware of Chinese bearing development aid. I have been researching this for a couple of weeks now, and I found this article, Who Would Buy a Chinese Knockoff Dam? It's not just dams, it's a lot of infrastructure, and it is something to be actually worried about. This video doesn't contain any pictures. It's going to be a little bit boring, but I'm going to lay down the facts for you. Xi Jinping has been laying out trillions of dollars or RMB, whatever the case. It's a lot of money to these developing countries, these third world countries, promising everything but grabbing it back when they can't afford to pay. Let's go into it a little bit deeper. Xi Jinping has thrown around $1 trillion in development loans, sucking greedy developing countries into debt crisis and leaving them with low-grade Chinese knockoffs that contribute little to the actual development and a great deal to environmental degradation. There is another old saying, and I really hate to say it because I do actually agree with it: don't do business with the Chinese market. One way or the other, they will basically screw you. What's happening is that she has a bucket load, a ton load of money, and going to these small countries or developing countries or third world countries and say, we can help you. And the government officials would actually think of themselves. Now, every government is corrupt one way or the other. In Asia, it's quite open. In Singapore, you would say it's quite closed, etc. But we can see through the cracks of this. So the government official doesn't think of its country or their country, they would actually think of their back pocket, and that's where a lot of the money goes, and China just gives these knockoff dams, knockoff railways, knockoff bridges, infrastructure. And here are some reports, and near enough the evidence of what's going on with some dams around the world. This is one example. Today, thousands of cracks have emerged in the 4 billion Kola-Kodo-Sinclair hydroelectric plant, government engineers said, raising concerns of Ecuador's biggest source of power could break down. Another example is in Pakistan, where one dam had to be shut down. This is a 969 megawatt plant, and it is now costing the Pakistani government $44 million a month for absolutely nothing. A shabby, poor constructed dam. Another example is in Egypt, or on the Nile, with a $2 billion dam that was built by the Chinese state management system, like the Three Gorges itself, and it has basically installed faulty cables, switches, and cracks left, right, and centre. Another article claims like this: and they are saboteurs hiding inside the gift horse, despite being lumped with infrastructure projects that are literally falling apart after just a few years, killing local workers and wreaking havoc on local environments. China is still insisting on being paid back the money borrowed to build these Trojan lemons. So what happens when these third world or developing countries can't pay? Well, basically, we can read this one. And when they can't pay, watch China declare that they have no option to take it over and run it directly from Beijing. Are the locals arced up? Chinese security teams, which look suspiciously like invading armies, are sent to safeguard Chinese interests. In other words, this inoperable dam, China will take over. They will bring over the Chinese security to look after it, basically. And then the Chinese PLA, maybe, will actually have boots on the ground in this developing country, and it will expand from there. And the local government, let's say of Chile or Ecuador or Peru or Pakistan, cannot do anything about it because they owe billions of dollars. It's basically a debt trap. And this is how the Chinese government do their international business. Don't do business with the Chinese government, period. You will be the loser. And if we continue with the article, this is one of many Chinese finance projects around the world plagued with construction flaws. Let's go to the Three Gorges Dam, and I found this article, and you can see this picture, first of all, of just this relatively small crack. But read this. Every day on my morning walk, I stroll by the Three Gorges Dam and take a few chips out of my trusty pick. My hope is in a few years, millions and millions of people will have constant, steady access to water. There is one article which I find very difficult to believe, that they say the Three Gorges Dam could power all of China. Yes, it can produce a lot of electricity, but it's like a lot of these other dams, which are younger than the Three Gorges Dam. Poor quality, cracks, mold on the ceilings, faulty cables, faulty switches, and even though the Three Gorges cost something like $35 billion, I would say a huge percentage of that went into the back pockets of people who were constructing and some local government officials, or lots of government officials. To pay back the dam, they did include an additional water tax to everyone who paid water tax in China. A small amount, you wouldn't really notice it, but how many people pay tax in China? Multiply that by so many whatever, and this actually gives the financial backing of the Three Gorges and possibly the money to build other dams, these Trojan horse dams around the world in developing countries. What is the future for the Three Gorges Dam and these other dams? They say that dams will run a course of 100 years before they have to be decommissioned. So, example, the Hoover Dam on the next decade will possibly have to be decommissioned one way or another. Advisable? Whether it's going to happen, well, we will just have to wait and see. Future impact of the Three Gorges, it does slow the world's rotation by a minimal amount, but if it continues to slow down and other dams continue to slow down the rotation because you're messing too much with Mother Nature's water, all the water is going to go to the north and south poles. With that can stop the world's rotation in the future. I'm talking thousands, tens of thousands, 100,000, millions of years' time. But there's got to be a better way. My simple solution is build a lot more smaller dams on the edge of these rivers, instead of these massive, colossal 100, 200, 500 meter high dams, which then people control the water. With that, we went to the last article, this guy wants to chip away so there will be a constant supply. Just like the Three Gorges or the Yangtze River before the construction started in 1994. Now, let's go into an interesting article related to construction from a foreign engineer in China all those years ago. I worked for 2 years in China, their high-speed rail projects from Hubei or Hebei province to Shaanxi province, 100 miles as chief engineer. Anyone who has worked with Chinese contractors knows that the quality is their number one problem at home and abroad. They have not updated Russian specifications for their work. And when this gentleman went to go and talk to the local engineers, they would just laugh him off and saying, "You're a foreigner, how do you know anything about it? We got the information from Russia." The writing is actually really small and I'm having difficulty reading this for you, but do have a look at it and maybe you can take a screenshot and enlarge it, for example. By all means, do that. interesting facts and figures for today, and the truth about these knockoff Chinese dams, the truth of the infrastructure around the world that's being built by Chinese engineers, and even from engineers who worked in China before, basically saying that it's just low quality construction. And one day something is going to happen, which we see every basic year that happens in China. I'm not saying it doesn't happen in other countries, it does, but it seems to have more frequency in the People's Republic of China. It's a debt trap. This is one way that China is getting stronger through money and taking advantage of these smaller countries who don't have any money, but they need the basics. And the corrupt officials of that country and China just put a bucket load of money in their back pocket, not caring about you and I, basically. It really is shocking. And there will be no rebuttal, and this will just go on and on and on. And you and I, basically, we can protest, but to be honest, it's not really going to help. We just hope that governments would realise, and maybe there are some better ways. Lemon Trojans, knockoff dams, poor quality. Welcome to the world of made in China. Quite simply, try to avoid products made in China. Quality comes from quality companies. I have waffled on too much. Thank you very much for your time. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.